All right. So we are back. Here's another speaker for Data Analyze 2021. This time the speaker is a little closer, not coming from Nigeria or abroad. This speaker is in Dallas, which is pretty close to me, and his name is Samar Khan. We've talked a couple times. We've connected through a couple mutual connections, and it turns out we've had some similarities in our backgrounds, our philosophies. So I'm pretty excited about this one. So Summer, go ahead and start off. Tell us about yourself. For example, you mentioned playing soccer before. What else is there to know about you?
Sure, Scotty. It's nice to chat with you and anybody who's seeing this view. I'm actually based in Dallas, as Scotty mentioned. I went to school in UT Arlington, did my undergrad, and I also did my master's in business MBA at SMU Dallas. Before coming to United States, I grew up in far northern region in India, Kashmir. Uh, Came on an undergrad scholarship to UT Arlington, started my tech career. Also, right before I came to United States, I was a professional athlete for 1 year. Very tough life, but very rewarding. And a lot of my day-to-day background, discipline, how my life has evolved, comes back from my career uh, in being a professional athlete some 20 years back. I love technology, and my focus in the last, I would say, 20 years. I've been in the tech industry for 20 years. I've led small, bigger teams. Um, I've built teams in close to 4 or 5 countries across the globe. My passion areas really are AI, ML, data analytics. I'm extremely passionate about blockchain and what it can bring um, in the global landscape. Extremely excited to share some new ideas with Scotty, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, appreciate it. And I think one of the really interesting things is, I did lead off by mentioning soccer, and that was a specific reason. Part of it is, we had talked about how that led to a lot of the philosophy, for you, a lot of the mental toughness that led you to do all these things you do. And unfortunately, we won't have time for all the amazing stories, but we can at least start with, for example, how you became interested in tech and tech and analytics, stuff like blockchain, AI, ML, how these various things have impacted your life, not necessarily just now, but also when you were growing up as an athlete, the stuff you were doing, like the Commonwealth Society, running the student chapters, for you coming over to the US throughout your life. So this is a little bit more general than what you've said, but how has tech and analytics impacted you and your life?
Yeah, early on, even when I was growing up in India, I always had in the early 90s, mid 90s, was fascinated by computers. And the computer classes had started coming to schools, high schools or elementary, middle schools. I took a lot of programming when I was in early on, I would say eighth, ninth standard, 10th standard. I was always intrigued by, computer programming. Found it really fascinating when with Web 2.0 or Web 1.0, how you can build a program and it would display. So that was my early on exposure to the technology. And as I started looking at my career, like what would I like to do? I was at the crossroads of should I pursue being an athlete? There's not much future being a soccer player in India. And I was always intrigued by computers, programming languages, and I decided like, okay, that seems like a straight shot for me to go to United States and pursue a career in tech. That was early on. And from there on, I worked with many companies, like Sabre, one of the top tier companies in the travel space. Was an intern there, working for the CTO, building a lot of web applications for airlines like U.S. Airways, American Airlines, and my interest actually, as I gained a lot of experience in the real world, that's it. incrementally increase towards AI, ML, blockchain. I have run blockchain meetup groups across Dallas Fort Worth areas, and extremely passionate about what it can solve some real world problems. AI, ML, if you really think about data analytics, AI, ML, they're all around you right now with the social media.
Yeah.
But yeah, my experience has contributed a lot to what my perspective has changed over the years. Why AI, ML, and data is key components of your life.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's one of those things, for us having grown up playing sports, you in soccer, football for the international audience. I played that growing up too. Although my most natural talent was in baseball, and my love was for basketball. And in any of those sports, baseball, it's easy to see the statistics, the analysis, the AI ML that can come into play. Basketball, because it's so fluid, it's hard to recognize it. But um, you know, we we can see the same thing, points per game, rebounds per game, minutes per game, also points per minute. So someone who has a low usage rate might be an efficient scorer, but they don't have the talent to stay on the court for very long. And things that don't seem to have as much AIML, we can actually put a lot of that in there. And I think it's just fascinating the stuff that we can do in the real world. There's always some form of data and analysis involved.
Yeah, and one very specific examples I can share. If you think about data analytics, why it's so important. We've got a pandemic raging right now,
Yeah.
towards hopefully towards the end of it. There is no way the scientists would have been able to build a vaccine if they had not analyzed the data over the years, the early discoveries with the vaccine development, some almost a decade back, using that data really accelerated where you were able to see vaccine being introduced into the market in less than 9 months. It's all about data. If you
Yeah.
think about example of what data can do, right? Very moment. These couple of these companies were able to bring out the vaccine because they were able to analyze huge data sets, look at all the permutations, combinations, and bring out, solve the most important problem in the entire globe right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I studied in college, a lot of people know about the more STEM side of me, but I also studied history. And one of the interesting things is, in the end, whether you're using numerical data or historical data, a lot of times you realize you're doing similar forms of analysis, whether it's historical research or the scientific method. You're taking some kind of information, doing your best to understand it in whatever ways are most correct, because sometimes we do misinterpret things like the Simpsons paradox, um or misinterpreting history, and or not reading between the lines or reading too much between the lines. But there's always some form of saying, here's information, let me figure out what it really means to answer a simple question. Let me figure out more information, answer another simple question. Once I answer enough simple questions, then I start to answer complex questions, and then I draw conclusions and I make decisions to form policy, to form decisions, to take action. It's just that, obviously, in this case, we're trying to say, hey, everyone, use numerical data, parse through it, compile it, clean it up, do whatever you need. Use R, Python, Scala, just figure out what's going on. What do the numbers show? Find a way to visualize it and present that. And I think, like you said, there's a lot of data around. And then for these companies, Moderna, Pfizer, many others, Johnson Johnson, I'm blanking on the name, the company that created AstraZeneca, but a lot of these companies, they're not simply responding to the pandemic. They're using information that has existed from previous pandemics or epidemics, Black Plague, the Spanish flu, smaller outbreaks of the flu or the cold, allergies. They're studying many things, and even things outside of their realm, for example, biology, anatomy, physiology, nutrition, even geographic and meteorological data to determine where will, certain winds blow, pollen, all that, everyone's, genetics and allergies. And I think from that, they don't necessarily have the exact answer, but they can approximate it. And then when the real deal happens, then they have the real world data to say, okay, let's fill in the last thing we need and very quickly identify what do we need to do. And then they make the policy and then build the vaccine. So yeah, data is everywhere.
Yeah, and one thing from the pandemic has taught us, right, that data will be key to prepare for the next pandemic,
Yeah.
which we all know will happen. But again, what this pandemic has taught us, analyzing the data, whether you can use the data to predict the next pandemic or the next treatment or the next vaccine development, data is going to be key. And if you, as I said earlier, if you look around, data is everywhere. It's in pretty much everything that you do or you're going to do. And it's just going to get better with AI, ML, in every field, whether it's medicine, whether it's technology. It just is that natural assist that's going to be out there, whether you're looking at improving your business, whether you're improving your, I would say, family life, or not being too private, but it's going to be mainstream. Same like blockchain, which is all having secure data over the public or private networks.
Yeah. And I think that that really raises the questions, conflicts between life and tech. On one hand, it is amazing to have all this technology. For example, I can simply use my phone to look up any information right now. But then, of course, my phone can also track my search history, and it's useful to suggest things for me, or maybe even to warn me, hey, you're using your screen too much, or hey, you've been looking up lots of these things. Are you okay mentally? To some degree, these are, it is kind of weird thinking about, does Apple or Google or Microsoft know everything about me, just like a lot of governments do? But at the same time, if your friends know about you, then, the question is, how is the data being used? And I think that's one of the interesting conflicts we're seeing, because with the digital revolution and now especially the remote revolution, we are seeing what exactly is going on.
Yeah, and there's the social media, the data, especially being all kind of data is shared across. I've always been the proponent that share what you like to share. Don't share too much. Don't share the whole family history on a blockchain or to the entire network. Sharing of the data, which, as we say, social media knows what you're doing, what you're not doing, what you like, what you don't like. Try to be a little bit more careful, because that data can land in the wrong hands. It can lead, your life can be disrupted because of a click here or there.
Yeah.
And with the social media, there's got to be a lot of governance, which basically restricts of using their data for the wrong things. So I think that's a lot of governance in place in the United States, at least. Maybe not much in the other countries. I just feel that as a society or as a community, that we have to keep improving, that the data is used for the common good rather than for the bad. As we know, it can be used for many bad things.
Yeah.
And we have many extra, secure layers of security. If you look at blockchain, why blockchain is, if you really look deeply, think about blockchain and data, it is the most secure way to do transaction, whether they are financial transactions or there are other forms of transactions where you're transferring data from A to B, or they are. That's one of the reasons that I'm really passionate about blockchain, is it's the most secure network than the regular networks out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, obviously for a lot of people right now, most of us aren't familiar with blockchain yet.
Yeah.
So, it's not to say that, data is bad, but for those of us who are concerned about data privacy, blockchain is a solution that is growing, it's evolving, it does exist. We just don't always know, we don't always think about it. But, a lot of us are asking questions, what's going on? Is anyone trying to fix it? yeah, people are trying to fix it. It's just, it's kind of like if I had the vaccine before the pandemic, people would not know about it because what's the point? I'm not going to pay attention. Oh, now we need the vaccine. Oh, who's making it? Oh, wow, mRNA RNA technology. And I think that's the thing. Blockchain has been around for at least 10, 15 years by now.
Yeah.
It's just that it's only recently becoming public, or I guess well known publicly. It's been around, but we're just now reaching a point where we're all trying to find out how do we address data privacy. And blockchain is saying, hey, we've been developing. In fact, we are now a teenager, maybe a young adult. We exist. It's just that before we weren't able to do what people want, but we're reaching that point.
Yeah, it's. I think the blockchain has, I view as being in blockchain and AI/ML. They are all interconnected. That is the future. A lot of people do not get blockchain, because it's not complex. The technology is very straightforward. Everybody's interested in knowing what actually it solves. As I said, very simple use cases, the security of the data, yeah, say for financial transactions. And the other thing I see is definitely blockchain is here to stay. It is going to be mainstream in 5 years from now. We see all the governance that's changing from countries to states globally. But it's just, it's one of those, just like one of the pillars that I feel uh, is kind of a web dot 2.0. It's not there really. I feel like in the next 2 to 3 years, as companies start to get involved in the blockchain projects, get involved in how data can transition or transfer from one to a network to another more securely, they see the benefits. At the end of the day, it is a data that gets transitioned or that moves from A to B. That's where the blockchain benefits are going to be presented, and those are solving very pure use cases in the global industries. That's why a lot of the companies like Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, they're all investing in creating their own blockchain ecosystem. And these are big, they believe that it's going to change the way we look at data more securely. But AI/ML has, if you look at AI/ML, they have been there out there for 20, 30 years, machine learning, training the machines to do more. Now you're going to see more and more of that because we want to, as an example, in travel industry alone, we want to kind of see more like what people like commercially, or if you're looking in the business travel or leisure travel space, we want to be in the space where we're able to predict what my revenues for the year next 5 years are, and that's where data is going to be very key. But it's not just ingestion of the data; it's also the data governance is needed to really take it to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of it, like you're saying, it's impacted by data, it impacts data, it's interconnected. So, we were kind of talking about the future of the world and all that just now, but kind of a little closer to home. What would you like to see for your community through all of this?
Yeah, and I've got deep roots, as mentioned earlier. I came from northern part of India. I have a. I'm trying to build a community in the blockchain, the tech space, but I'm also my goal is to educate a lot of people about what data can do, how it can improve their lives, how blockchain or AI/ML technologies are here to stay, and they mostly look at the good side. As a community, I want to educate not just in the United States but globally. People who may not know about these technologies, may not know about data, what data can do to them, and mentor the young kids, mentor the young kids to be future computer scientists who can really solve a lot of problems that the communities are having, and see how technology really earns them a living, but at the same time, solve some real time problems that they may have. But one way is I am involved in many with many schools in and around Dallas, like SMU, UNT, UTD, UTA, which is where I went to school. I want to basically build a whole ecosystem where I could actually help the kids, help these institutions in many fronts from technology side, bringing them together, whether it's building a blockchain ecosystem or AIML, where they can solve common problems. Also giving back to where my roots are from Kashmir, building partnerships for the future, helping kids over there who may not have the access to the technology or the resources a typical computer science or technology student in the United States had. And we with Zoom and those technologies, they're bringing us closer where we can interact much freely with somebody who's almost like other side of the continent or other side of the globe more freely and exchange ideas and help the community.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And the past few years, the stuff that I've done, the stuff you've done, you know, uh, I kind of wish we had crossed paths earlier because I feel like we could have created even more impact before the pandemic. But obviously, now that we've connected, anyways, through Dr. Mack of SMU, which thank you to him. I definitely think looking forward to doing more in the future. I think there's a lot of synergies, a lot of the stuff we've talked about. I think we can do a lot. And obviously, for all the participants, everyone watching this, we hope this talk has helped you a lot. So if you're trying to connect with Samar, you check in the video description below. His contact information is there. He's definitely interested in trying to find talent to hire. He's a senior manager at Capgemini. So definitely feel free to reach out. And like always, if you have questions, you can reach out to me, to him. We're here to help. Obviously, Summer, now that we've met, we can definitely work together into the future. And I think it's just one of those things for anyone watching. We want you to be part of this ride. We've had our own rides in life. We've brought people along. We've had people bring us along. At least, if you're trying to join someone's ride, you're welcome to join ours. We want to help you get to where you want to get, and hopefully at some point you'll be able to bring others along for your own ride too. So, Samar, thank you so much. Do you want to close out with any final words?
I think the future is very bright. As I mentioned, I'm looking forward to working with Scotty on many initiatives. Especially building some really good hackathons in 2022, and which really brings the community together, whether they are in the United States or whether they're across the country, across in India, parts of that side of the world. We want to build some hackathons. We want to help the community, and we have the common passion of giving it back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Summer. It was great having